Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, the creator and host of the award-winning podcast that you're listening to right now. Thank you so much, called Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. It is a daily podcast, 365 days a year, and each day we talk to an author about all of the things related to their career, their book, their life, and more in 30 minutes or less, because who has time? I am now an author myself, although I wasn't when I started this podcast, and you can get my new memoir, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, wherever books are sold starting July 1st, and my children's book, Princess Charming. You can learn more about me at zibbyowens.com, but really you're here to learn more about the authors, and that is what we're going to do. Also, be sure to check out all the other podcasts in the Zcast Podcast Network. You can learn more at zcastnetwork.com and definitely check out those shows as well. Gabrielle Zevin is the best-selling New York Times author of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. You may not have been able to have missed this book because it's gotten so much press absolutely everywhere and is like the darling of the year with so many accolades and everything else. In addition to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, Gabrielle has written The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry and also wrote the screenplay for that, which is a movie, and several other novels. She has also written books for young readers, including the award-winning Elsewhere. Hi, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining. I'm Zibby. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. That's quite a library you have back there.
Thank you. Yes, this is my office. Yeah.
Wow, it's great.
All the way around. Yeah. Thanks.
You really committed to the color arranging lifestyle.
You know, that shelf, that like never moves. So I've had it like that for like 2 years. And then I use these bookshelves. Although to be honest, even these are filling up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Yes, I'm committed to that there and I like it.
It looks beautiful. At one point I got rid of so many books of mine. And frankly, like during a, 2015 Marie Kondo bout. And I really feel regrets about it, to be honest,
I actually, surprisingly, did also give away a lot of my books. And I am so sad that I did that because I'm like, what were they? And I would have anyway.
I mean, I had them really organized too. Like I had I don't know if you remember this library thing where you could like scan in your barcodes and have it like all like organized. So I had there was no organization problem with it, but I was just like, do I need all of these books around? But it turns out I did, Yeah. But I still have a lot of books. I just mean, I think about some of the books I parted with,
Yeah. And it's sad.
It's sad. A moment for the books, I
had a friend who I was going on vacation because everybody always asks me, even before the podcast, I was always the person like, I'm going on vacation. What should I bring? I'm like, oh, take this. And then she loved, and I gave her some of my like favorite books. And she came back and I was like, what did you think? And she's like, oh, I love them. And I was like, do you have the books? And she was like, oh no, I left them in the hotel.
Yeah, I know.
It hurt.
I gave my friends, like my writer friends, so I think writers generally are pretty casual with their books because like you just have so many books coming in all the time, especially if like you're it all known as I'm sure you get tons of just like galleys or just so many things are coming at you. But I lent my friend, like my writer friend, a book that I really, really loved. I was like, this is a great book. And she never gave it back to me. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, it was like a hardcover of a thing that was a prize winner. And she just she did read it, but just never returned it, But I feel casual, but my books are not casual, anyway.
I feel the same way. I totally get it. And some I'm more attached to. Some have like personal meaning. And I don't know.
If I lent it to you, I probably really liked it, is the thing.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't give you something that I didn't think was great.
Exactly.
And especially for me, I mean, even after the horrible like Marie Kondo purge of like 2016, for me, like the things I kept around were things I like go back to a lot too. You know what I mean? Yep. Like books I wanted to like, go into for research and what have you.
Yeah.
But,
or like the original copies that like when I first got
right.
them. That have been
it's funny, like some of those will start to like fall apart and you can barely use them as objects anymore too. But yeah, I don't think books like it, anyway, I actually loved Marie Kondo, not to talk more about Marie Kondo, but I loved that book when it came out. Like I was on book tour at the time on another book and it was in all of the stores. And, so I actually thought it was quite a good read, even before it became like a show and like tons of people doing it. I thought, this is really interesting. Like, it shows you how to part with things, which is difficult, I think, for almost everyone, So I did think that book was actually quite a good read. But on the subject of books, I think it fails, She was like, photograph or write down passages from certain books, but you don't need to keep the whole book, was one of the things in it, for instance,
No, I feel like I just look at a book and the whole thing comes like floating back, all those scenes and people. And no, that's why sometimes I have a hard time with ebooks, because I don't get reminded of them all the time.
I have a really hard time with ebooks because you don't kind of know where you are in them either. If you're kind of remembering something spatially or visually, like when you're thinking about, how far through am I when this thing happened, or even kind of the abrupt surprise of an ending. If like you're on an ebook and it shows like, hey, you're at 90%, and then it turns out the last 10% is actually like a sample chapter or something.
Yes. Yeah.
You're like, oh no, it just ended. But so it kind of, I think, messes with your perception a lot,
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good.
So we did that.
I'm glad to know you were the first, an early adopter of Marie Kondo, and that, perhaps your early enthusiasm is what set her on the trajectory.
I hope it was not, because I honestly think in the end, like there are, like anything that becomes very popular, like there were great things about it, but I think, a lot of people that kind of adopted it maybe, and even, at a certain point, she herself opens up like a store and she starts selling more things. And the whole point is to get rid of things, know. And, like a thing I loved in her book, not to keep talking about this book from like 7 years ago, was that, she talked about how you really didn't ever need to buy things to organize. Like you should just kind of save your boxes and use those. And they were better than any sort of thing. And then like she ends up selling boxes, that kind of thing.
The lure of consumer consumption.
Right. Like, so I think the book was good philosophically, but then the brand became an entirely other thing,
I also really think that, I don't know, after I have been a part of like cleaning out a few people who have lost like possessions, I feel like you look at your things in a whole new way. Like I think about that every time I get something where I'm like, someone's going to have to figure out what to do with this thing after I'm dead. Like, what are they going to do? Yeah. I think about that all the time, just to really, like, what are they going to do with this? Are they going to keep it? Like, where are they going to put it? Are they gonna
my mom had that reaction when they had to get rid of my grandmother's stuff. Like when she died, she was like, I just have to have my things in order,
Yeah.
I think there's like is this right? Remember there was a thing called like Swedish death cleaning?
No, I don't remember that.
Yes, I didn't read this, but it came out after Marie Kondo. I forget what it's called, but it's called like Swedish death cleaning or something, where you basically do exactly that. You prepare to die, and that's your it's like the way I'm laughing, but it's not funny. But like you organize your things in preparation for not being here anymore,
Well, it does make you think twice about buying certain things or keeping certain things, right? It's just stuff someone has to go through on your behalf. It's sort of a pain.
Yeah, I know. Like who wants all that kind of piles of just stuff, like it would be burden. I think about like when my mom dies, or, because people being mortal, but I think about it like, how hard it will be for me to like get rid of certain things that are just even casual possessions of hers, that kind of thing.
Well, and then I think you realize too, that the things you want to keep the most have nothing to do with the value of the thing itself.
No, it doesn't.
It's all about the sentimental, and honestly, the things I cling to for whoever's passed away are the handwritten things, which is sad since no one handwrites anything. But if there's like a card that they sent or a letter they handwrote, like that's like, oh.
Right. Or just like, I agree, and kind of like the emails and the DMs, like the screenshots of those don't like do the same thing. I do think about the photos, by the way,
and
like, I don't know how many how many photos are in your photo library on like, Apple or whatever right now. Like, I think like at some point, should I actually clean those up? Do I feel like psychically burdened by having, whatever it is, 15,000 photos?
I just opened it up. How do I know how many photos I have?
Let me tell you, I'll open mine. Okay, hopefully this won't crash us out.
I don't know how I know.
I think, let's see.
I think at some point I could tell on this is a really interesting podcast, how many photos, anyone listening, how many photos?
Anybody listening, just send your report. Like it's not actually apparent on this version. Right? So I think I
might have to look on my phone.
We'll have to table this issue for
The answer is a lot.
The answer is definitely a lot.
Yeah. I do, though. I'm really good about printing albums. Are you good at that?
Not really. I don't think I've printed it. I mean, I used to print all the time, but not currently. No. And I kind of feel bad about that.
You should.
Okay. Oh, I
No,
just
I'm
figured
kidding.
out. So if you're in Apple Library, click on
Yes.
all photos at the top.
All items.
And then like just kind of scroll yourself to the very bottom. And so it turns out I have 55,540 photos and
Whoa.
490 videos.
Wait, hold on. I'm going down. Oh, wait, how many do you have?
55,540.
I have 169,966 photos and 9,825 videos.
Right. So, but in any case, we have a lot of content.
This is only starting in 2008.
Yeah, same. No, actually, at some point, some of my things, it was kind of creepy. At some point, like it managed to find everything that had been on like an old desktop. So I do, and anyway, it kind of scares me because like all of a sudden you'll see like a photo from '97 that was like a film photo, and just on your phone show up, and that's odd.
No, I'm annoyed because I put all my prior photos on like discs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and now I don't know where the discs are. I can't access them. They're like years missing of my kids' lives, but it's okay.
I mean, you can probably re-import them, so you can get up to 200,000.
I would.
Yeah.
I even have, all of these here are all my photo albums from before. I'm like obsessed with photos.
They look really organized and really like, I like appreciate the fact that you have the same kind of album like over and over again.
Thank you.
That kind of organization is. Like,
I started with red and then I went to maroon and navy and green. And then I stopped and started making them online.
Right. I know, but it's funny if you don't make things, it kind of feels like or even make things, buy things, maybe because we're like from a capitalist culture, whatever. You doesn't necessarily like you need sort of sometimes tangible proof of having lived.
I completely agree. Which also
some artifacts
is like writing books too. I also feel like that is some way to say like, okay, I was here and now I've written this or it can like resuscitate people too. Right. Like this person is.
It can. So for me though, like, my first novel came out 17 years ago. And I think what I think about it is like just how different the person who wrote it is than the person I am now. And so to publish across many years is to live with sort of ghost versions of yourself. And one of the things I think is, like most people in life can kind of like softly transition into other points of view, other ways of thinking. But when you're a novelist, you have sometimes like proof that at least, that person that you were felt such and such a way about such and such a thing at such and such a time. There's less like deniability that you ever, thought that thing,
I love that notion of ghost selves. I read like this old journal from when I was a kid to my kids. And they were like the same age. And I was like, this is so crazy. It's like the young version of me just met my actual kids. And now they're all like having a virtual play date or something. Do you know what I mean? And
it's funny, like I remember being young that age and how much you like when you're journaling or whatever, you are, you think you live in the future even when you're that age, especially when you're that age, like how many times it's like did you play that game like MASH, Mansion, Apartment,
totally,
Shed House,
totally.
You know what I mean? Time. It's like it's like you're obsessed with the future when you're 10.
Yes.
Probably up to like, I think college, even, I think then it starts to feel like you're in the future, but I think for, especially when you're quite young, it's, you're both present and imagining what it's going to be like when you no longer say live with your parents or go to school every day or whatever it is, what is that life going to look like for you,
Yeah. We should do a new MASH for like middle to old age, like nursing home,
oh my God.
Nursing home, assisted living, like your kid's house or, I don't know, hospital, I don't know, NAKH or something. And then, like
that would be horrifying and
then
scary,
like how many grandchildren you have and like how many.
Right. All those kinds of things. Like it would be basically terrifying though,
Pretty much. Yeah.
I think I'd be super, how like you do the thing with the circling, I think I would be obsessed with getting that circling like right to avoid, extended convalescence or whatever it is,
Totally. Oh my gosh. I remember that like it was yesterday. Yeah. Like doing all those drawings and yeah. Well, okay. So Gabrielle, What is your book about? Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I'm kidding. I tell listeners, if they're still with us here and reminiscing back to MASH and, now everybody's counted all their photos. Actually, on the social media post we put about this episode, everybody should put in how many photos they have. I'm totally curious about how many photos everybody has in their photo albums. But anyway, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Best-selling novel. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you do your quick paraphrase of what it's about?
It's funny. I don't feel like the book pitches quickly, easily, even though I've been doing it for several months now. So I have like the quick version of a thing I say, which I know is deeply, inadequate, which is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow is about love, art, video games, and time. And then I'm like, well, that's really vague. We should add something to that. So it's the story of Sam, Mazer, and Sadie Green, who have a 30-year friendship and artistic collaboration. And, they're probably the most important people in each other's lives, but they aren't any of the usual suspects to each other. They're not spouses and they're not brother, sister, or anything like that. And I think the book kind of is trying to answer the question of what if the most important person in your life wasn't any of the usual suspects? What if it really was your colleague and your friend?
Interesting. I wanted more of an update on Sam's foot and the injury and all of the information about the car crash and the actual bone healing and how that all went down. Did you consider that?
It's funny. I was thinking very particularly of another book that I won't mention when I was thinking about writing this one. And what I really wanted to write about was, just to back up, the reason that I wanted to write Sam as having a physical disability is because I thought that was one of the main reasons a person might be really drawn to video games, and in a way it gives him a way to be able-bodied though he is not, and so that was to me a core drive for what he got out of playing. But in terms of the overarching structure of the book, I wanted to show how a person might just incorporate chronic pain into their life and go on, that I think a lot of people are in pain. And there are some novels I have read that seem, and I think pain when you are in it is defining, but some of these novels have almost a Byronic fatalism about what it means to have an injured body, and, that is not a healthy attitude because the thing we know about bodies is that they are fallible, and so for me, it was a conscious decision to have pain be very central for him for probably, I would say, 65% of the book, and then to have it kind of recede into the background because he had taken these steps. And I think it's always there. I think the key thing for me, like in terms of the research that came out of like amputations, was thinking about phantom pain. Like that was the thing that really intrigued me, the notion of the fact that you can still feel a limb even after it's been amputated, and so I think this to me was a metaphor, for Sam's pain generally. And just, it's a thing that he always lives with, that's always there and not there at the same time, But no, I really wanted to, at some point, again, show that Sam had figured out how to live in his body, and I think that was part of the arc for it. So at a certain point in the novel, I don't think the issue was ever resolved for him, but I didn't want to again, tell the reader and then, that it was either hopeless, or that it was, again, the central part of him, and by the way, I think the point at which he is kind of able to deal with his pain, which is kind of, again, this is a spoiler, but after his amputation, it does allow him to, I think, do other things in his career personally and professionally. It opens him up in a way, but it is still always there. It's still driving him. It's still, making him need love and not always able to show love. And everything about him is kind of centered around both the traumatic incident of the death of his mother and the pain that resulted from that, both physically and mentally, So that was my thoughts about it.
Okay. And what about, why link that, right? So Sam and Sadie really strike up this friendship in a place where they're both in pain for various reasons, him physically and her through the illness of her sister. And they bond that way. And obviously their relationship goes through so much along the way. But Sadie also has stuff from her past, not just her sister, but even what happens when you're the sister of someone who's going through some sort of physical major trauma. And she had some line early on about how, people just forgot about her. Maybe that she'd only had this one chocolate pudding all day long or vanilla pudding all day long, right?
Right.
You forgot to even feed her. And so what does it mean to go through something and also to overcome something like that as a child? How do you become a full-bodied, full-spirited adult carrying all of this stuff around?
I feel like, it's funny. We have these kind of benchmark ages of like, you're an adult now, and it's like 18 or 21, or the Japanese have 20. But I don't really feel like I had myself figured out till probably like 40. You don't
even look like you're 40, by the way.
Well, I'll be 45 next week. So
no way. Oh my gosh.
Heading right down. In the middle-aged MASH game that we're going to play, I'm like,
I know that.
Right.
I'm like, that's why. I guess that's why we're doing that. I'm 46, so yeah, same.
So
same
we are the same age, basically. Yep. And so I just feel like it's amazing, and you only know this when you're older. I think how much like of life you just is improvised. Do you know what I mean? How much things are thrown at you and you figure them out as you go along, and you do better and you do worse sometimes, and hopefully you do better more than you do worse, And so, with regard to Sadie, I think, video games for her aren't to escape her body. They're to escape mortality, and the fact that the death, I think, really loomed over her childhood in a really, it was really present in her childhood because of her sister's illness, the idea that somebody can be taken from you at a moment's time. And obviously that's part of Sam's story too. And, so I think in both of their stories, to me, they're about the traumas or just things, like you said, the things people have that lead them to create other things, And, so much of Sadie's early life goes into their early work, even though like a lot of, obviously Solution is based on her grandmother, but also Ichigo, which, people in the book, people on the outside think is more Sam's game. It's deeply Sadie's game as well, She is everybody in it as much as Sam is, even though like by appearances, it seems as if it is, Sam's game.
What about Emily Blaster?
Emily Blaster was meant to be the kind of game that an enterprising student might make very close to the night before it was due.
I thought that was cool.
I think it is cool, and obviously Emily Blaster runs through, and Emily Dickinson runs through the book. It's both the epigraph of the book, that love is all there is all we know of love. It is enough. The freight should be proportioned to the groove. To me, it's a pretty good synopsis of the book in 4 lines. The first 2 lines are kind of a riddle about love that are then solved by a machine-based metaphor. So I always think, well, you can either write like a 500-page novel, or you can write, a 4-line poem, and it can say kind of the same things.
I think that's kind of an advertisement for being a poet, to be honest.
Right. That economy, I mean, I like the sprawl of a novel. I like to go live in it and to live with characters, and I like to be in it with them, so poetry does one thing for me, and I think it can be particularly expressive of very particular states, but I like what novels do too, though I read a lot of poetry, actually. Yeah, no, I know.
I'm kidding. I'm just from a cost benefit little analysis here.
Right. They can pay, you $250,000 a word.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I also really enjoyed your depiction of Sadie when she is sort of fighting for this relationship with Dove. Do you pronounce it Dove? And
I pronounce it Dove.
Okay.
Somebody had convinced me to pronounce it Dove. And then I kind of was like, well, maybe he knows what he's talking about. But it turns out it actually is Dove, confirmed by my audiobook producer. So
okay, good. I mean, it's your character. But anyway, yes, Dove. And what women in particular sometimes do, and you talked about the objectification of Sadie, even what she was wearing, when you feel that waning interest, and so you kind of double down to try to attract the person, even though there's almost nothing you can do, and you just hope that maybe this one dress or this one outfit or this one come hither look might change the mind of somebody whose mind is obviously already made up.
Right. Yeah, I think it's funny. Dove is a character who sometimes I'll talk to somebody younger than me who will say, why isn't Dove punished more in the book? And I'm like, well, because the book ends in 2013, so somebody like Dove, as long as he kept his life pretty tidy, was fine until about 2017, and so to me, that was the interest of writing about I enjoyed writing Dove because he is a person who is completely now, I guess you would say, an anachronism, something in a modern setting, where you could kind of be like big and, borderline or actually sexually harass your students, and it would have been fine, as long as you didn't cross certain lines, as long as and I think he's always clear over and over again, like these technicalities, he says, like, you were not my student when we started a relationship, so he's like, I'm good, but the abuse of power is obviously quite evident and still there. And, so the second section of the book is called Influences. And that's what it's really all about, how difficult it is for Sadie to ever escape the influences of Dove, in terms of professionally and personally, and so, I think, the scene you bring up where she kind of puts on her very 90s outfit to go seducing, then she feels sorry for herself that she has worn that the Sadie at the beginning, like she feels bad that she has put this on to try to like win him, and decides, I think I'll just keep my coat on, but like, it's funny, like she's fighting for something that like, I think she's not even sure why she wants it, at that point in time, and to me, she just knows she doesn't want it like taken away from her. And I think I wanted to write about the kind of like draw, young women feel toward older people. And Dove is not like ancient. He's only 8 years older than her. He's 28 to her, 20, or something like that, 19 to her, 19 and 27. But he is a man in every way. He has a, professional advancement. He has a wife. He has a child, So I think she's drawn to all the kind of good qualities he has. He turns out to be quite a good teacher, and that coexists with, of course, what is actually an inappropriate relationship,
Yeah. Well, brought me back. All right. What's your next book going to be? What can we?
I really have no idea at this point. I have no idea. And over the years, I have found that like, when my first book came out, I went out and I did all these interviews where I'm like, I'm writing this book about vaudeville, and the more I talked about this book about vaudeville, the more I realized like I was never going to write this book about vaudeville, And so that vaudeville book never happened. Some research happened on it and what have you. And I think the truth of it is, I think you realize that the person who goes out and like promotes books and the person who writes books is actually a very different person. And so once you start kind of like pitching an idea, it kind of starts to calcify and harden that idea before it's actually become a thing in any way, And so for me, I've stopped talking about what I'm working on, but currently I think I know what I'll work on next, but I'm not sure because like for me, I like to, the problem has never really been having ideas. It's deciding which one is worth following, like with this book, games was a great subject because it drew so many other subjects and other things I wanted to talk about to it, but it's hard to find a great subject, I think. And so anyway, and I don't know if something's going to be a great subject usually until I've kind of gone down the road with like researching and thinking about like the people in it. And you don't know, even if you have a great subject, you don't really have anything until you, draw some people to it, i.e. characters,
I'm sorry I asked. I shouldn't have asked. I put you on the spot.
I don't mind. I actually like answering the question. I'm sorry I don't have a great answer. Like I'll be writing a book about clowns, next.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I actually love the idea of authors on tour coming up with a fictitious book that they're never planning on writing and just always answering with that. It's kind of funny.
It's funny about that. Anyway, one of my books is a movie and it'll be out, this week. But basically, I had to write some fake book titles for the author in that. And one of the fake book titles made me think, I think I know how I could solve this idea that I had many years ago. And so I think that's the idea that I will work on. But sometimes coming up with something fake, I think can lead you to something real. That would be the danger of the fake book. You would pitch it so much that you were like, now I kind of want to read this thing,
I'm actually writing this novel called Blank, and it's about like an author with this blank book. But anyway, I won't give it.
Cool.
I won't give any more away because I haven't written it yet. I've only written half. Anyway, I had so much fun chatting with you. This was awesome. Thank you for your time.
And thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to come up with different photo storage things now that I am as horrified as I am by how many pictures that I have on my desktop. And this may be why it runs so slowly. Anyway.
It may be why. It's possible.
Okay, I'm going
Thank
to
you
teach
so
my
much.
kids. I'm teaching my kids MASH later today. That is now on my to-do list after this.
You need to make sure to update it, of course, so that it doesn't have like the retro values of
I know. I'm going to come up with some new categories. Or you can. Send me an email.
Right.
A new
All
game
right.
for you to include here. Okay. All right.
Bye. Nice talking to you.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.